What's going on, Colts fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Colts Brawl. I am your co-host, Cody Felger. Joining me, your other co-host, Michael Terrazas. Michael, how have you been, man?
I'm doing all right, man. Doing all right. Sorry if I sound a little off today. Not in my regular studio like I am, kind of busy doing other things, but we always got to make time for the Colts Brawl podcast. So we got a good show for you guys today.
Absolutely. And today we're going to first start off by talking about some news that happened this last week in terms of the Colts offense. It seems like a lot of these guys and a lot of the moves that they've made have been primarily to the defense, but they make a move this time. They sign former Steelers Pro Bowl fullback Roosevelt Nix. And Michael, initially, what is this move? He's a 260-pound fullback. What does this move speak to you? Why do you think the Colts made this move?
Because they want to pound the football. That's what other position or what other purpose is for the fullback position. I mean, a lot of people are kind of like caught off guard because it's like, who uses the fullback anymore? I know San Francisco had that Jusasek guy, and then Roosevelt Nix. Those two guys are probably the only fullbacks in the league. So we're bringing in Roosevelt Nix. You saw, this has to do with, I believe, what we've talked about, that east to west run game. Because even when I've been watching film, it all started in the LA game. I saw it when Mac would run out wide left or out wide right, a loss of 2 yards, loss of 3 yards, no gain, loss of 1 yard. It shows that Chris Ballard and his staff has basically went through all the film and they found that Roosevelt Nix, he'll clear that path. He'll clear that extra defensive end, that extra safety, that extra linebacker out the way, so that way Mac, Wilkins, they can get extra yards. I think he's also a good pass protector if need be. And, don't ever count him out when it comes to catching the football. I'm pretty intrigued to see what Frank Reich can come up with in Indianapolis when it comes to adding Roosevelt Nix to the offense. That's basically what it speaks to me. He wants this run game to be consistent. And last year it wasn't that consistent. I know Mac was a 1,000-yard rusher. They were one of the better run games in the league. But when you just look at that east to west, man, Chris Ballard, he wasn't happy with it, and then he ended up adding Nix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you said, like Frank Reich had a goal before the 2019 season. Obviously, with Andrew Luck, it changes things, but he had the goal. He wanted the Colts to be top 5 in rushing, and they were just out of that. They were top 7. Which is still pretty good, but it's obvious that they want to continue to place more of a emphasis, I guess, on the running game. And this certainly speaks towards that and looks like the Colts are committed to the running game. Obviously, the draft will impact, do they take another running back somewhere, maybe mid-round, late round, to continue to, maybe more of a power back type of thing. But this certainly speaks to the fact that the Colts want to pound it and they want to do a good job at that. And I think it's just, Frank Reich doubling down, and we want to be a top 5 rushing team no matter what. That's the Roosevelt Nix signing. Now we can kind of look at some of the biggest position on offense, the wide receivers. There's a lot of guys there. It's a very deep class, one of the deepest ones in a long time, according to a lot of experts. We want to kind of look and dive a little bit deep into some of these guys we think could be potential fits for the Colts. Michael, I don't know how many guys you've been able to look at here. There's a lot of guys that could potentially fit well with the Colts, whether that's the second round, whether that's the fourth round, maybe it's later. Who are some of your guys who you think are potential fits for the Colts here?
Well, when we hear about fits, we talk about the Denzel Mims of the world. We talk about the Jalen Reagors, the T. Higgins, those guys. And I want to highlight some guys that really haven't been talked too much in our fan base. You know, the first guy I'm going to go with is Donovan Peoples-Jones from Michigan. He is an athletic wide receiver. He put on a good showing at the combine. At Michigan, his tape doesn't really wow you. His tape doesn't really do too much because of, you know, the lack of quarterback play that wasn't Shea Patterson, you know, not being able to drive the ball down the field. His arm was limited. So it kind of limited the plays Harbaugh wanted to run in that offense. But what I saw from Donovan Peoples-Jones is his ability, kind of like Jalen Reagor, play much bigger than he is. Now, he is taller than Jalen Reagor, but Donovan Peoples-Jones can get physical right back with a corner. If he's ever put in to press coverage, you know, he's not afraid to get physical with another corner. He makes some great catches. He has strong hands, and that's basically the one thing I love about him. He reminds me a little bit of a Paris Campbell in terms of he wasn't asked to run too many routes. So you have questions about him as a route runner. But I think if he was to go to Indy, you know, we'll see him in training camp. We'll see how he blossoms, and that'll work itself out. Another guy I'm looking at who's actually becoming one of my favorites is Van Jefferson from Florida. I've been looking at him pretty closely the last week or so. He's up there, man. He's probably the best route runner in this draft. If he's not number one, he's definitely number two behind Jerry Jeudy.
Mm-hmm.
I've spoken that on Twitter. He is a gadget guy. He has some good moves. And Florida isn't known for throwing the ball all over the field, but if he gets to Indianapolis, I think he has the potential to become that number one receiver, that second-tier guy to T.Y. Hilton, to complement T.Y. Hilton. Because I love me some Van Jefferson, man. His route running is just top-notch. His technique, just everything about him. Those are two guys that I really, really like. When you're talking about the 4th, 5th round, maybe you look at a Tyler Johnson from Minnesota. You know, he's also a good route runner. You know, the one thing we're going to notice in this draft is the guys who are just freakishly athletic, they're going to be the round 1, the round 2s. When it comes to the guys that are really polished, solid route runners who don't offer too much, you know, big plays, you know, all that stuff, it's going to go a little bit into the later rounds. You're talking about Devin Duvernay, the guy I just mentioned, Tyler Johnson. Now back to Johnson. I know I got off track a little bit there, but I really do like Johnson. He has capable hands. You know, he's shown he can prove it in a pro-style kind of offense in Minnesota. That's another guy I would look at when it comes to the mid-rounds. If you're looking for another speedster, I would look in the direction of a Devin Duvernay. I like what he presents. He's got that burner speed along with Paris Campbell. That would be dangerous. Then when you want to look at in the later rounds, I would look at potentially Quez Watkins from Southern Mississippi. He just has the afterburners. Is just the athletic ability for a guy like him. I think would be a very, very solid piece to the Colts offense. Now the question with Watkins is his ability to fight off press coverage.
Mm-hmm.
Because when Southern Miss faced Alabama, you know, he went up against a Trayvon Diggs. Trayvon Diggs basically bullied the guy. He overpowered him. That's the one thing I would have about Quez Watkins. The talent is there. You just question some of, I guess you could say, the muscle. You know, is he tough? Is he tough enough to go against these corners that are changing their game? They're going more into press coverage, more man coverage. Is he going to be one of those guys to just, you know, fall through the cracks and become someone special? Or is he just going to last a year or two in the league? So that's who I'm looking at when it comes to this wide receiver position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another guy that I'm interested in, being a Notre Dame fan, is Chase Claypool. He's a guy I know people have even projected to potentially switch over to tight end in the league. You know, he's 6'4", 238, almost 240. His hand size is ginormous, 10-inch hands. And for how big of a player he is, he ran a pretty darn good 40 time. He's a guy that, you know, could potentially what if he slips into the first round? Like he's such a freak athlete. 2019, he had a pretty solid season. He had 66 catches, 1,037 yards, 13 touchdowns. He has some very impressive runs after the catch, which I think is very important. And he's a huge receiver, which I'm personally of the belief that you need to get some size complement to T.Y. Hilton and Paris Campbell in getting a bigger receiver. And he's a guy that's not just a big receiver, but he can also make some plays after the catch, which I think is huge for this Colts offense. And so he had a good week, I think, of practice at the Senior Bowl. I think he ran faster than expected in the 40 time. And, I think that 40 certainly helped his stock. And you also have to factor in the quarterback play. I mean, Ian Book's a solid quarterback, but for one of Claypool's years, he was playing with Brandon Wimbush, which no knock on Brandon Wimbush, but not a great passing quarterback. And so all those factor in. I like Chase Claypool quite a lot. I think he's a guy that's just a freak athlete, and that's kind of what the Colts need. And when's the last time the Colts have had a guy like that? A guy that you can just throw the ball up to and can make freak plays like that. So I like him quite a bit. Another guy that was really interesting to me as I was looking into this wide receiver group is Quintez Cephas. He's a guy out of, I believe it was Wisconsin. 6'1", 202, 32-inch arms. Hand size is a little bit questionable. I mean, it's a little under 9 inches, 8.75. Didn't have a great 40 time, but he's a guy that, he was a big play weapon for the Badgers in 2019. Obviously, he had that allegation that, was dropped, the sexual allegation, but he's a guy that, despite the fact that Wisconsin was a run-first team the majority of the time in 2019, he's a guy that was a big play weapon. He had over 900 yards, 7 touchdowns. And I don't know if you saw this, but Jeffrey Okudah, one of the top corner in this draft, he came out and said when he played against Cephas, he was the hardest receiver he played against. And so he's a guy that, there's some risk there because of, some of that stuff that I mentioned. But he's a guy that I think could potentially be, a low risk, high reward type of player. He's not overly giant, but he's not, small by any means either. And he was a big play guy for the Badgers last year. And especially considering just, you think about if you put him in a system that's more pass friendly, what kind of numbers he could have put up. So he's a guy that's more of a late round guy that I would be really interested in.
Yeah, when it comes to Cephas, I mean, all you got to do is just look at who the running back was, Jonathan Taylor. I mean, you just got to – that was just a run-first offense. Even when they played Ohio State, they just did nothing but run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. I like Cephas. I like that analysis you put on him. The hand size, I'm not too worried about it, man. As long as you can just get your hands on the piece of leather, man, and bring it down, that's all I care about, man. That's all I care. I'm not too worried about the sexual allegation because I haven't heard too much about him, character-wise or anything. When it comes to Cephas, I think the question is going to be where he falls. Because I think just like you, many scouts are looking at him and saying high reward, low risk, high reward, however you want to say it. Could he be a guy that gets taken a chance on? Like, could he be taken by a surprise in the second round, the third round? My target for him right now is the 5th round. Because just because of how deep this wide receiver position, that's why people have to keep in mind how deep this wide receiver position is. If this was like last year's draft, man, he probably would have been a third round receiver. With him, I like the speed. He had a pretty good combine, better than I think I actually thought I gave him credit for. And, just listening to other experts out there, they're kind of saying the same things that, we're saying. So that's basically my thoughts on Cephas. Back to your guy, Chase Claypool. He's one of the guys that Colts Nation are talking about. I like him, and I will, agree with you when it came to the passing game. When I'm looking at Notre Dame's film, I wouldn't say he, Brandon, or what's the quarter? Ian Book, is that his name?
Ian Book's the quarterback now. He took over for Brandon Wimbush.
Right. Okay. when I looked at this year's film, I didn't see too much throwing around the field, but I did see Chase Claypool chasing the ball down pretty well, which is what I think scouts are really looking at. You know, of course you want a quarterback to just throw dimes all over the field, but what if, you know, say one day a backup quarterback has to come in and he's not giving you too much accurate balls? You got to go and track him down. That's one thing I do like about Chase Claypool. You said he's strong. He ran a 4.42 at the combine, really much faster than what anyone thought. I don't think he's going to be put at tight end yet. We just got to see how his career turns into. If he comes to the Colts, he's definitely, I can probably guarantee you this. When Chris Ballard comes on the press conference stage and they talk about Chase Claypool, I guarantee you, just like he said with Ben Banigou, he's going to say, we're going to do a lot of things with Chase Claypool. We're going to have my wide receiver. Hell, we might even line him up at tight end. I guarantee you that's what he's going to say, because he just loves plugging in athletic players at positions of need. And with Chase Claypool, he's a guy my dark horse for a Colts pick, because I think he's a good wide receiver that Chris Ballard is really looking for. Like you said, a big body who can just go up and get it. It's been a long time since we've had that. So that's my thoughts on Chase Claypool. Some other guys, you know, when it comes to Denzel Mims versus Jalen Reagor, I will take Jalen Reagor. You know, I just watching some game film, you know, Denzel Mims had a better quarterback this year than Jalen Reagor did, and Jalen Reagor still put on a show this year. Denzel Mims, he had Charlie Brewer. Charlie Brewer is going to be a good quarterback. But, you know, going through 4 different quarterbacks, Jalen Reagor still found a way to make an impact. He is just electrifying. He can line up at running back, slot receiver. Hell, he can even throw the football. Jalen Reagor is a guy right now. It's really a toss-up because we're a week away from the draft. I've kind of narrowed my wide receiver options down to like 4 people as a Colts fan, and those 4 people really are Jalen Reagor, Chase Claypool, and Michael Pittman and Van Jefferson. When it comes to guys you want to be the number 1 guy in the future, I look at those 4 guys and I just say, hey, look, I love these guys. I love their potential, their athleticism, their hands, their speed, their route running. That's where I'm at in this position of need, the biggest position of need going into the draft. Now, I would really be intrigued to hear your list, if you have one, Cody, to hear your thoughts, your favorites at the wide receiver position 1 week away from the draft.
Yeah, I think we're pretty similar here. I love Jalen Reagor, the stuff that he does for you. Like, he can play punt returner, kick returner. He is obviously a great receiver. And you mentioned, like, just the quarterback play. Like, he didn't have great quarterback play, which obviously led to kind of a dip in production-wise. But he's a guy that you get the ball in his hands if he goes and makes a play. And I think that Frank Reich, Nick Sirianni, all that offensive staff would salivate to have T.Y. Hilton, fully healthy T.Y. Hilton, one of the faster receivers in the league, have Paris Campbell, the fastest receiver last year, and Nyheim Hines, who was the fastest running back in 2018, all on the same roster. I think it's just incredible. You know, I'm still of the belief, though, that if you take a Reagor there at 34, I believe it was, then you still need to find a size complement somewhere in this draft, just because I feel like you don't really have a big receiver. Zach Pascal's your biggest receiver, and he's, 6'1", 6'2". You don't have a dominating red zone threat, and I feel like that's been lacking for so long with the Colts. And so I like Jalen Reagor a lot, though. I think he's a guy, if he slips into the second round and he's available, you take him. He's a home run hitter, like I said. He's ridiculously fast in the open space. So I like him a lot. I was big on T. Higgins, but I'm kind of leaning off of that, coming off of that a bit. I just was salivating at his size and his arm length, but he's just a guy that, I don't know. I wouldn't be opposed to him at like 44, but at 34, probably not. Because there's just different reasons, but yeah, Denzel Mims is probably my favorite one, just because he's got the size and he's also got. I feel like he's more of an athlete than T. Higgins, if that makes sense. Like he can do more things after the catch.
Yeah.
And he's not that much smaller than T. Higgins in terms of height. He's 6'3". T. Higgins is 6'4". He has, a little bit smaller arms, but, not that noticeable, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that I think is just a phenomenal player. He had a really decent Senior Bowl, which I think helped him a lot. It's crazy because I think some teams had graded him on day 3, which I think is absolutely insane. He's just a guy that has just been really, really good overall there. And I would love for him just to be a good complement there to T.Y. Hilton. I feel like has the potential to be a good X receiver there for the Colts. And I mentioned Chase Claypool. I already touched on him. One guy that's really interesting to me, and this is a little bit different in terms of size, is KJ Hamler. The guy out of Penn State. He's 5'9", so he's pretty close to T.Y. Hilton in terms of stature. He's just a speed demon. Like he's just a guy that if you, similar to Jalen Reagor, you get him in the open space, like see you later. Like he's the guy that's going to take it to the house. He's a guy that I think is just another way that you can stretch the defense. He's a guy that can score on any catch. Like if you get the ball into his hands, similar to Paris Campbell, Nyheim Hines, he could turn a 3-yard pass into a 90-yard score. He's just that type of player. And I think he kind of reminds me a little bit of Deshaun Jackson in a way, just the deep threat that, you kind of need, especially with the concerns with T.Y. Hilton. He's been injured the last 2 years. I mean, he played through the injury in 2018. 2019, he missed some games, missed some time, and there's just a lot of uncertainty there. So I like KJ Hamler quite a bit. I don't know how I feel about Laviska Shenault. I mean, I remember he was projected like a top 10 pick, I think, at one point, but he had a down year here in 2019. He had some medical concerns as well. He had that core muscle surgery after the combine. And then I heard, there were some rumblings that maybe he didn't have the greatest combine interviews. And so, maybe if you get him if he slides a little bit and you get him, maybe it's worth the risk. But yeah, you mentioned Tyler Johnson, which I think is a good one. I like him a lot. I think he's a guy that's good at, making contested catches, which is something the Colts have very struggled with. And it kind of fits the style of this offense, especially with what we've seen from Phillip Rivers wanting to give his receivers chances to go up and get balls. I like him quite a lot. But there's a lot of people here, but those are just a few of my guys that I really like a lot.
Yeah, man, I like KJ Hamler too. I think I'm not really looking his way. I have studied him because never say never in the NFL. But when you have guys like Nyheim Hines, Paris Campbell, T.Y. Hilton on your team, I don't think the need for KJ Hamler is definite. When it came to Laviska Shenault, I was intrigued by him. He plays like a physical wide receiver. And I'm kind of like you with T. Higgins. I've kind of backed off a little bit because when I just look at the tape, he's playing in the Pac-12. He's playing in the Pac-12. I'm just looking at the Pac-12. I'm not seeing a whole lot of talent at the corner position. I'm just not really seeing it in the Pac-12. So, I'm kind of out on Laviska Shenault. When it comes to, I really do have like a scenario, or no, not a scenario, a question. When I'm looking at Colts fans' preferences, when we ask, they say, oh, grab Denzel Mims at 34 and then grab another receiver at, in the 6th round. Cody, what would you be opposed to Chris Ballard going with 2 wide receivers in the 2nd round?
Ooh, 2nd round. That's a good question. Oh, that's tough. I would be certainly surprised by that. But we've seen it. I've learned with Chris Ballard. I am gonna never say never with this guy because I mean, you've looked at his history before the DeForest Buckner trade. You're saying there's no way he's going to trade 13. Well, look what happened now. The Colts will have a first-round pick for the second straight year. So I wouldn't say it's the craziest thing in the world, honestly. And Chris Ballard has this great track history of taking those positions that we see, man, they're the biggest weakness, like clearly. Like we saw with the offensive line back in 2017. Jacoby Brissett got killed in 2017. 2018, Colts have one of the best offensive lines in the league. And then you even look at the defensive tackle this year. It was one of the weakest. It was the weakest position on the defense, that 3 technique. Chris Ballard goes out. He signs not one. He trades for one and signs another. He basically signs 2 of the starters from the 49ers defensive line. He's a guy that when he knows there's a weakness, he addresses it, and he almost over-addresses it, which I think is a great thing to have in your GM. And so, no, I would not be shocked if Chris Ballard did that, honestly, because he's a guy, even though his history has not shown necessarily that he puts that much capital into wide receivers, honestly, I would not be shocked if he did, because he's just a guy that he wants his roster to be the most well-rounded he can, and he felt like he didn't give his team enough chances to win in terms of depth and talent last year. And so adding 2 wide receivers, that would give Rivers a lot of weapons on top of some other guys that could potentially help them out too, currently on the roster.
Definitely, man. I had to ask the question because if I'm Chris Ballard and I'm looking at this team top to bottom, I just addressed this defense. I don't know who's going to start at nose tackle, Danico Autry, Sheldon Day. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Sheldon Day, and Danico Autry is a great backup in the 3 technique. I'm looking at the offense, and I'm saying, what is the biggest need on this team? I just addressed quarterback. Our offensive line is set. Running back is set. We just added a fullback. Who could potentially line up at tight end? Who knows? I'm looking at the wide receiver position. And let's say you take a Jalen Reagor at 34 and a Donovan Peoples-Jones at 44. Like, you're adding some serious talent to this team. You're adding speed, athleticism. I mean, Jalen Reagor and Donovan Peoples-Jones are some of the most athletic wide receivers in this draft. I mean, when you talk about Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, CeeDee Lamb, immediately you need to talk about Jalen Reagor, Donovan Peoples-Jones. People talk about Justin Jefferson. I think he's a great wide receiver, but the athleticism, I don't think it's there, when it comes to – I don't think he's above Jalen Reagor, Donovan Peoples-Jones, those guys. He's still a great slot receiver, but I don't think he's there yet in terms of athleticism. We got to wait and see, man. One more week to wait and see what goes on at number 34. I'm still of the belief that we're probably going to see a trade back at 34, because I put out a poll yesterday. If you're Chris Ballard and you have the 34th pick, what do? You trade back, you take a wide receiver, you probably, take a corner, or what? And then it still kind of annoys me when people keep saying Jordan Love, trade up for Jordan Love. I'm like, no, I am not trading up for Jordan Love. Like, no, that's not going to happen. I'm not trading 34 and 44 so I can go get a quarterback. No, I'm not doing that. Not when these needs at wide receiver and tight end are big. I just can't do it. So right now, I think it's looking pretty likely that Chris Ballard will trade out of the 34th pick. That's just my hunch. I think there's a lot of options you can look at and say, who do we take? Maybe he goes with best player available. Who knows? I wouldn't even be mad if he added a Noah Iganagani or a A.J. Terrell to the corner position. I mean, now you got Hockenson and A.J. Terrell for the future. But with me, Cody, I think right now I think I'm trading out of the number 34th pick. Maybe add – because remember, the 34th pick is basically a late round first rounder. Maybe he can gouge out another third-round pick. Maybe that'll be a great position for him to be in. So that's where I'm at when it comes to number 34,
man. Yeah, no, that's fair, man. That's fair. Okay, well, cool. Well, we can move on now. We're going to just kind of to wrap this one up, do our kind of 3-round mock draft here. And the way that we can do it is so you can start here, Michael, with your number 34 pick, and then I'll share mine, and we can just keep going down to our 3 picks.
Okay. All right. So when it comes to the 34th pick, the Colts are on the clock. It's day 2 of the draft. At number 34, hell, I just said it. I'm going with A.J. Terrell, the corner from Clemson. I just look at his film. I looked at the wide receivers he went against this year, and I really like what I see. Coach Dabu Sweeney and those boys down at Clemson, they know how to coach them up some corners. And with A.J. Terrell, I think he gives you a great 1-2 punch in the secondary with him, Hockenson at the other position, Kenny Moore in the slot. I just love the potential there. I mean, if my choices are, let's say, an Ezra Cleveland, an A.J. Terrell, a Jalen Reagor, Denzel Mims, I'm looking at how deep the wide receiver position is, and I'm looking at the corner position. And I'm comparing, are one of those late round corners going to be better than one of the late round wide receivers I take? And is this corner I take at 34 going to be better at whatever receiver I take at 34? To me, man, you're playing in a division where Deshaun Watson lives. You got a Ryan Tannehill, who I think is going to be throwing the ball this year. Gardner Minshew, we know he likes to throw the ball. Not only that, Ben Roethlisberger is coming back this year. We play them. Kirk Cousins, we play them this year. Adam Thielen is looking like maybe they're in talks with Cleveland for Odell Beckham Jr. You look at Green Bay. Who are they going to add at wide receiver to go with Devontae Adams? You look at Kansas City. If you get into the playoffs, you got those monsters. You got to add premium, elite talent in the secondary. I think a secondary of, just go down the list. Xavier Rhodes, Kenny Moore, Hockenson, A.J. Terrell, Malik Hooker, Kari Willis, George Odom. That is probably the best secondary in the AFC. I'm taking A.J. Terrell at number 34.
Okay. That's fair. I'm going to go – probably you're not going to love this pick, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going Denzel Mims, receiver, Baylor. He's good size. We've already touched on him a little bit. He's been a solid receiver for Baylor for a couple of years now. As a junior, he had 55 catches, 794 yards, 8 touchdowns. And he was even better as a sophomore. He had 61 catches, over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. He has good size. He was picked last year on the NFL team's preseason watch list, which is interesting. I think he has the ideal size to what the Colts are looking for in terms of complement to T.Y. Hilton and the other receivers. It's 6'3", 192. I feel like he's a guy that has really good hands, which we know drop's been a problem for the Colts for a while. One thing that really impresses me about him is his contested catch ability. He's very, very effective at going up and getting balls over defenders and getting, boxing out defenders as well. And he's such a long receiver. And so, I think that's just that's an element that this Colts offense has been missing for so long. A guy who can go up and get the ball, a guy who can do great at, receiving after the catch, rack ability. And, just a guy that fits very, very well with the presumably the vertical passing offense that the Colts are going to run. And so I like him a lot. I think he's a fast receiver too. It's not, just because he's 6'3", it doesn't mean that he's slow by any means. He's very good at the deep routes. And he's a physical, tough guy. And he's also something that's underrated, I think, is his blocking ability. And I know that's a big deal for Frank Reich and Nick Sirianni, is the receivers blocking downfield. And we mentioned Roosevelt Nix. That indicated the Colts really want to run the ball better, and getting a guy like him, like Mims, who can block very well as a receiver, could even reinforce that even more. So that's kind of who I have there. I know it's not your favorite guy, but I think he's going to be a solid X receiver at the NFL level. He has great catch radius. He's a very physical receiver. I like him a lot. I think that it'll work well and give Mike Groh, the new wide receivers coach, another guy who knows how to maximize his strengths. And I think he's a great option right away for T.Y. Hilton, and also a good complement to Paris Campbell as well.
Oh, definitely, man. I want to set the record straight. I like Denzel Mims. The reason why I choose guys ahead of him is because I just think he won't be there at 34 when the Colts pick. If he's there at 34, go for it. Take him. But I just think when you look at New England, when you look at New Orleans, when you look at Green Bay, possibly San Francisco, they lost Emmanuel Sanders, they're going to take Denzel Mims. That's what I just think. If Minnesota doesn't get a trade with Cleveland for Odell, then, they can take Denzel Mims. If Denzel Mims came to the Colts, I would be extremely happy because he's still a talented wide receiver. He just is.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's where I lean when it comes to Denzel Mims, because I just think he's going in the first round. I just think he won't be there at number 34. At number 44, this might shock some people. But I've discussed, if you want to add premium talent, then you got to go get premium talent. I think the Colts end up taking nose tackle, potential 3 defensive tech, versatile defensive tackle, Neville Gallimore.
Really?
I think Chris Ballard ends up making a trade later in the draft. He ends up trading Danico Autry somewhere I haven't discovered yet, but I think it will be for a future mid-round pick. Okay. I actually like it, because you look at Sheldon Day, the 1-year contract. Neville Gallimore, he's younger than Danico Autry, fresher than Danico Autry. He could be a great backup and turn into a starter at nose tackle. And remember, DeForest Buckner, Neville Gallimore, those two can play both positions, defensive tackle, 3 technique, and nose tackle. So regardless, you have a phenomenal interior defensive line, regardless who lines up at it. So I'm looking at it, and I look at the potential, and I say, you know what? I'm going with it. I'm pulling the trigger.
I like it. I like the trades that shock me. I'm not, whatever, man. I love it. Go for it. Okay, so for me, I am not going to be as crazy probably, but I am going to address the corner position because I think it's important as well. And I'm actually going to go Damon Arnett, cornerback OSU. He's 6 foot 195. I like him a lot. I think he's very good at man, and I think I want the Colts to play more man coverage. I think they should. He's not as great at zone technique, which the Colts play some zones, so that maybe would be something he'd have to just continue to learn. But I like him a lot because I think he's a guy that has pretty solid ball skills as well. He's very instinctual, which is big. He's a guy that you can't teach instincts, and he's a guy that I think has good instincts. He's similar to Malik Hooker type of guy. He just finds the ball, and so he's a guy that has a good motor. He's a guy that actually is surprisingly a pretty solid physical corner that will go up and tackle, which is a huge thing. We've talked a little bit about Xavier Rhodes. He's a good tackler. Kenny Moore's a good tackler. I like this guy a lot. I think that maybe he has to get a little bit better at tackling still, but I feel like he can continue with, just continue to develop and learning more better techniques. I feel like he has a size to be a solid tackler. He's physical. He just has to get, that polished up a little bit. But I like him a lot. I really do. What are your thoughts here with this guy? You kind of reacted, so I don't know if that's a good reaction or not.
I like Arnett, man. I like Arnett. He's definitely not Jeff Okudah, his college teammate, but he's still a quality corner. I'm with you when it comes to the tackling. We know how much Matt Eberflus loves corners who are willing to tackle. And I think when it comes to Arnett, I'm with you when it comes to playing more man. And we did see this season Matt Eberflus turn up the knob on playing man coverage. We saw that. We saw it in Kansas City, that terrific game plan he had. We saw it over the course of the season. He turned up the man coverage. Damon Arnett, I think he's still a quality corner to be added. Is he any better than, Rock Ya-Sin? I think they're probably equal in talent because you just look at instincts, like you said. Instincts are not coachable. You either have it or you don't, and that makes you great. And like I said, playing in this division, you're going up against guys, A.J. Brown, going up against guys like Kenny Stills, Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks. I just named the whole entire Texans wide receiver core. But you got to add guys that can cover these speedy wide receivers. And I think Arnett is a great zone corner, but even in man-to-man, he's just as good. So I like the pick. I like the pick. So going into the third round at number 75, I honestly think that he slips. He slips. I am going to go with Chase Claypool at number 75. I think at 75, you have many options. You got a tight end. You maybe want to go after some lineman depth. But I think at this time, if you're going to go corner, if you're going to go defensive tackle at some point in this draft, you've got to address the wide receiver position. And it's definitely likely Chase Claypool slips to the third round because, remember, he was graded a fifth-round wide receiver, and now all of a sudden he's graded a second-round or really third-round wide receiver. And it's just by his talent that he had at the combine, the performance he put on. I think he slips, man, because I think everybody is going to be looking at tackle, edge rusher, defensive tackle, quarterback, wide receiver. I think he slips, man. I'm not entirely sure if that's going to happen come the draft, but I love the pick of Chase Claypool. You're adding a big body receiver who is going to definitely bully some other corners in the league. I just want to see it. Fourth and goal at the 1 yard line, tossing it up to Chase Claypool. Just go and toss it up. The last time I had this feeling was when, for my TCU days, when Trevon Boykin and Josh Dotson were tearing up the league, and all you had to do was just throw it up to Dotson, and it was automatic. And I hope that comes to fruition for the Colts this year. I really am getting excited about my own mock draft. It probably won't happen, but never say never.
Right. And for me, 75, I'm going tight end. I'm taking Adam Trotman, tight end out of Baylor, 6'5", 251. He's got what you're looking for in a tight end. He's got good height. He's got good length. He's got a good frame. He's everything you're looking for in a tight end. He's explosive. He's pretty fast, and he's also pretty good at the top of his routes. He's a former basketball guy, which I think is big. We've seen that kind of conversion for some former basketball players who have had success in the NFL level. He's a guy, actually, interesting enough, he came to college as a quarterback. So he's still learning the tight end position. There's a lot of untapped potential there, and I think he's a guy that can be used in a lot of different ways, which Frank Reich loves to do. He's a guy that can be used in the backfield, kind of a chess piece that Frank Reich uses, whether that's, as an inline blocker, whether that's out of the backfield, whether it's in the slot or just out wide. He can do it all. He's a guy that the big con on him is just that he's still learning the position. I mean, he's just a guy very athletic, very gifted, has a lot of the intangibles you're looking for in a good tight end. And I know a lot of people are high on Cole Kmet, Bryson Hopkins, some of those guys, but I think Trotman is a guy that he could fall to 75. I think he's a guy that fits very well in what the Colts want to do. He's not particularly bad at one thing. He's a great receiver, and I think he's a solid blocker as well. He's a very tough guy. But maybe something that he's just going to have to learn is just and get more experience at in the NFL level is just more inline blocking. But the Colts have two of the best run blocking tight ends already, so he doesn't necessarily need to be the best blocker right away, if that makes sense. But that's something he can continue to learn and be coached up on. But he certainly has the size to be a solid run blocker as well. So I like this pick a lot. It's probably my favorite pick out of any of these guys. Adam Trotman here, tight end out of Baylor. What do you think about him?
Adam Trotman, man. He is definitely, when it comes to the skill position, one of the biggest risers in the draft. Along with Denzel Mims, because Denzel Mims wasn't thought of much. But when that Senior Bowl came, that Combine came, he went from the 6th round all the way up to the 1st round. And when you talk about Adam Trotman, I didn't even know about Adam Trotman until probably late January. He was rated as like a 7th round tight end, potentially undrafted. And then I started looking at his film. You looked at the Senior Bowl, you looked at the Combine. He just shot up. I mean, he shot up. He went to the 7th round to potentially a 2nd round pick. And if there's a guy that you want to replace Jack Doyle, I think Adam Trotman is that guy. He has good speed. He has good hands. The blocking, it will get done. I think the blocking will be better. He's not, I guess you could say, the blocker that Cole Kmet is, who I think is the best pure tight end blocker in this draft. But Adam Trotman, man, I love it because, he's, I guess you could say he's not the big name, Thaddeus Moss, Hunter Bryant, or anything like that. But he is a very quality tight end. When I look at Adam Trotman, man, I think I've said this before on the draft. I see a little bit of Rob Gronkowski in him. And if that comes true, trust me, the Colts are going to be in good hands.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that. Man, that's crazy. But yeah, man, I think that does it then for our 3-round mock draft and everything that we've talked about. We've covered a lot of stuff today. Thank you to our listeners for, if you're at this point, that means you kind of like us a little bit. So we want to say thank you to you guys for doing that. Anything else, Michael, that you have regarding the draft, regarding some of the Colts moves before we wrap this podcast up?
Not really, guys. Just to let the people know, just stay safe out there. Get ready for the draft next week. Next week's draft is going to be our full mock draft. Me and Cody and we're going to involve our own trades, trade ups, trade backs, whatever the case may be. Next week, that's what we're going to have right before the draft. So that's really all I have to add into.
All righty. Well, thanks, guys, for listening. We really appreciate it. And, thanks for listening. Hope you guys have a great night.